And welcome to Training Tuesday, where we go through regular tips and tricks to help you build a professional life you love. Now, this week we are talking about communication, which is one of my all-time favorite topics. My husband calls me the hyper communicator because I am. I love to talk about things. Anytime I have a question or something I'm working through, I will pretty much talk to every member of my family, all of my friends, everyone about it for way too long because that's how I process things. And so talking has never really come too challenging to me. But because of that, I think it's a really important topic to touch on today because I know this is a challenge for a lot of people. And what I'm talking about today specifically is communicating a no, right? Communicating a bad news, quote unquote, to someone else. And the reason that this is on my mind is because a month or so ago, I had a consult with a potential new client, and she was a great fit. On the call, she was like, yes, this is awesome. I'm definitely in. I have a company that funds some of these learning programs, so let me talk to them and figure out how to get that funding, and then I'll get the contract set with you, but I'm a yes either way. Cool, no problem. I followed up with her after she was supposed to talk to HR. No word. I followed up with her again. Crickets. At that point, I was like, okay, I get what you're saying. Luckily, I've been in this business long enough that I am well aware that sometimes when you just get radio silence from someone, that means they don't want to move forward, but they're too uncomfortable to tell you. And it really got me thinking about this because that's a shame, isn't it? Right? Like, for me, I'm not gonna be losing sleep over the fact that someone said, hey, this isn't a fit. Either I found someone who has a rate that's a better fit for me, or I found someone whose programming sounds like a better fit for me, whatever it might be, right? Like, I'm not gonna bat an eye at that. I more so want to know that, right? Because who knows what we would have been able to do to resolve any of those objections or concerns she had. She didn't give me an opportunity to do so, so of course we couldn't resolve them, right? And I think this is, again, not a dig at this particular person. I think it's just a really important example because this is certainly not the first nor the last time I will ever have someone ghost in the middle of conversations after saying they wanted to move forward, right? Like, this happens. Any coach will tell you this is a very normal part of the process. And I think this is something that happens across the board. Another example is when I was in corporate and I was doing hiring, I remember having putting out an offer to someone, and the other person who was in contention or a contender for it is what I was trying to say, I guess. But a contender for the role responded to me and said, like, oh, okay, I let them know we weren't going to move forward, and they said, oh, okay, can you share any feedback with me? And so I sat and I thought, and I wrote kind of some thoughtful feedback about why they weren't the choice in the end and sent it out to them. Didn't think anything of it. The next day, I get an email back from them saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sending this to me. I always ask this question and I never really hear back, so thank you, this is really helpful. Again, surprising to me because it seemed obvious to send them the feedback. They asked for it, cool, let's do it. Bing, bam, boom. Unfortunately, right, because we hear this, we know that this is such a common experience across the board. And a lot of people who are in this world will tell you, like, oh, well, did you ask for feedback? You should ask for feedback. But then people aren't willing to give it, right? Some people do, which is great. But it sounds like, from what I've gathered, a lot of those people don't because they feel uncomfortable and it feels confrontational and they don't want to have to do that. And so that's what I think is so important to impress upon you this week. The importance of communicating things. And sometimes communicating those things is communicating like, no, this isn't going to work, or no, you're not the hire, or no, fill in the blank here. Right? And while those conversations might feel uncomfortable at first, I think it's really important to remember that our job is to communicate what's going on, and our job is not to preserve others' perception of us. And I think that's what we're doing when we try to not share the bad news because it feels uncomfortable. And so that is my task for you this week, right? To recognize if this is going on in your life anywhere, to recognize if there's conversations you're avoiding, or that email that you haven't responded to because it feels uncomfortable, or it feels like it's been too long since they emailed you, or if it feels like whatever your objection may be. Give yourself a little pep talk. Give yourself, look in the mirror, speak to yourself, do whatever you need to do to pump yourself up, and then write that email. Because I can tell you the person on the receiving end, more likely than not, isn't going to be mad about what you're saying. They're just going to be happy to actually have heard from you and know, so that they can move forward with all the information at hand. Because as I was going to say, all I want you to do is make decisions with all of the information at hand, ask the questions you have to ask, etc. Because that's all the best we can do in any situation. Okay, so that is my task for you this week, to be aware of your communication, where you need to communicate things, maybe something that you've been avoiding, and have that brave conversation, because I know those of us on the receiving end will be thankful you did. So start there, send those notes, and in the meantime, happy working.